I sat across from Elizabeth Grant and Monica from HR in the small conference room tucked into the corner of Glass-Tech's building where I had worked for the past 12 years. The stark white light from the overhead fixtures cast a cold, almost sterile ambiance. Elizabeth, the head of HR, began the conversation with a formal tone, every word carefully chosen, though a faint trace of satisfaction lingered in her icy blue eyes. "The company is restructuring, Sarah," she said, her slender hands resting neatly on the light wood table. "We are merging the research department into the product development team. Unfortunately, your current position will no longer be needed." Monica, seated beside Elizabeth, quietly slid a cream-colored folder toward me. "This is your severance package. We truly appreciate your contributions over the years." I accepted the folder without opening it, giving a slight nod. I already knew what was inside: the standard offer, 1 week's pay for each year of service, health coverage for 3 months, and a list of career counseling services I would never use. "I completely understand," I replied, my voice steady and even. Both Elizabeth and Monica exhaled softly, relief washing over their expressions. Perhaps they had braced themselves for tears or even anger from a 50-year-old woman being pushed out of the tech industry, where youth was often valued above experience. What they didn't know was that I had been expecting this moment for weeks. Ever since a misdirected internal email thread landed in my inbox. "We'll need you to complete the transition of your responsibilities by Friday," Elizabeth continued, her confidence growing in the absence of my resistance. "Please return your keycard, company laptop, and phone before you leave. Your team will be notified this afternoon." My team, 5 bright young engineers whom I had personally recruited and mentored. They were the same team that had helped me develop the data processing algorithm that doubled the industry standard speed, forming the foundation of Glass-Tech's flagship product, Dataflow, an analytic software used by over a third of America's top corporations. "Of course, I'll make sure everything is wrapped up properly," I said, rising gently from my chair. "Is there anything else?" They exchanged quick, puzzled glances, seemingly taken aback by my composure. Monica shook her head. "No, that's all. Thank you for being so professional." I left the conference room, walking through the glass-lined hallway that offered a clear view into the executive boardroom on the opposite side. Through the transparent barrier I could see CEO Jonathan Parker presenting enthusiastically before a large screen, the title of his presentation displayed prominently: Q3, Revenue Projections. Jonathan. The same man who, at last year's industry conference, had taken full credit for my algorithm, referring to me only as one of the research team members. Back in my office, I closed the door, took out my personal phone and sent a brief message. "It's time. I'm leaving on Friday." The response came immediately. "Perfect. The contract is ready. Let's meet tonight to finalize the details." I smiled, glancing at the desk calendar in the corner. It was only Wednesday. In just 3 days I would leave Glass-Tech forever, and on Monday I would embark on a completely new journey where the real story was only beginning. I took a final sip of coffee from the white ceramic mug with the words, "Dataflow Team, we make it flow," printed on it. A Christmas gift from my own team. Now more than ever, I knew I was ready for what lay ahead. That evening I met Ryan Mitchell, CEO of InnovateX, at a restaurant tucked away in an upscale neighborhood. The place was known for its privacy, with tables separated by soft flowing silk curtains, offering a perfect sense of seclusion. Ryan had chosen a hidden corner where no one, not even the staff, could see us. In his early 40s, Ryan exuded the confident and polished demeanor of a successful businessman. His sharp gaze and knowing smile hinted at his experience, but during this meeting, I could sense the caution in his every move. We shook hands, and as soon as we sat down, Ryan got straight to the point. "So, they actually did it," he said, a mix of skepticism and satisfaction in his eyes. "I thought they might delay a bit longer, but clearly Jonathan Parker couldn't wait." I nodded, taking a slow sip of water. He thought I'd be passive and accept my fate. But they had no idea I'd been preparing for this day for a long time. Ryan smiled slightly, a look of genuine appreciation crossing his face. "You were right to reach out to me earlier. Our legal team has thoroughly reviewed all the documents. Your patent is rock solid with no legal loopholes for them to challenge." He slid a thick stack of documents across the table. "Here's the contract. Once you sign, InnovateX will officially secure exclusive rights to your algorithm. We'll announce it next Monday morning and introduce you as our new Chief Innovation Officer." I opened the folder, skimming through the terms I already knew by heart. The 7-figure signing bonus made me smile briefly, but what truly satisfied me was the profit share from every product using my algorithm. Ryan not only saw the technological value but also valued me as a person, something GlassTech had never done. "What's your communication plan?" I asked, closing the folder and looking up at Ryan. "We'll release the announcement through all major media channels highlighting InnovateX's acquisition of this groundbreaking technology. At the same time, we'll publicly acknowledge your role as the inventor. This isn't just a technological leap but also a story of proper recognition and transparency." I picked up the pen, aligning it with the signature line on the contract. "How do you think they'll react?" Ryan shrugged. "I doubt Jonathan will take it lying down. But don't worry, our legal team is prepared. We'll not only protect you but also turn GlassTech's confusion into a PR advantage for InnovateX." As I signed the final line, I closed the contract and handed it back to Ryan. He accepted it with a bright smile, then raised his glass for a toast. "To new beginnings and well-deserved recognition." "And to things they never saw coming," I added, the clear clink of glass on glass ringing like a melody signaling change. The remaining 2 days at GlassTech passed faster than I expected. I spent the time meticulously completing all transition documents, carefully noting every detail of the projects I had been involved in. Every password, every process guide was organized neatly in the internal system, ready for my successor. I left no gaps, no reason for them to accuse me of negligence. Elizabeth stopped by my office on Friday afternoon as I was packing my personal mementos into a small cardboard box. She leaned against the doorframe, trying to project a friendly demeanor. "Sarah, is everything all right?" "I've wrapped everything up, there's nothing left to worry about," I responded without looking up. Elizabeth forced a smile, a practiced but hollow gesture. "Thank you for maintaining your professionalism. I know this isn't easy." "It isn't," I replied, my eyes still on the only family photo I had left on my desk. "But sometimes, what seems like the end is just the beginning of a new door opening." "So, do you have any plans yet?" she asked, a spark of curiosity slipping through her otherwise composed expression. "Oh yes, I do," I emphasized each word, a faint smile crossing my lips. "I start on Monday." Elizabeth's eyebrows shot up, but she didn't press further. She simply nodded and walked away, leaving me alone in the empty office. I looked around one last time, feeling a mix of nostalgia and liberation. As I stepped out of the glass-walled building, I felt as if I was shedding an old, worn-out skin, ready to embrace a new light. That evening I sat by the window of my small apartment, gazing out at the city light sparkling against the dark sky. What I felt inside wasn't triumph or revenge. It was peace. I knew I was on the right path, and next Monday my story would start anew, written from the very first page, with bold and hopeful lines. I told myself this was just the beginning. There were so many exciting things ahead, and I would never let anyone or anything hold me back again. On Monday morning, I sat in my new office at InnovateX, surrounded by expansive glass windows overlooking the city skyline. Sunlight streamed in, casting shimmering patterns on my desk. The computer screen in front of me displayed a notification. The official press release was published at 7 a.m. I clicked on the link, opened the news page, and saw my name prominently featured in the headline. InnovateX hires Sarah Collins as Chief Innovation Officer, a strategic move with a breakthrough algorithm. The article summarized my career journey, highlighting my role in developing the data processing algorithm that boosted efficiency by 47%. It also introduced InnovateX's new initiative to integrate this technology into upcoming products. There was no mention of GlassTech, but anyone in the industry could read between the lines. Not even 30 minutes had passed before my phone started buzzing non-stop. Messages from former colleagues at GlassTech flooded in, each line adding another piece to the chaotic puzzle unfolding there. "Sarah, what is happening? The whole office is in an uproar. They just called all the managers into the conference room. No one is telling us anything. Jonathan Parker looks pale. He and Marjorie are arguing right in the hallway." I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I saved the messages in a separate folder. Every piece of information, no matter how small, could be useful if things took a legal turn. At exactly 9 a.m., another message popped up, this time from Laura, the head of product development at GlassTech. "They're reviewing all the documents about the algorithm. It looks like they just realized they don't have any rights to it." Sarah, what did you do? I replied simply, check your personal email, you all have new offers from InnovateX. I could imagine the mix of confusion and hope in Laura's eyes and in the rest of her team. They were talented professionals who had supported me greatly in previous projects. I had promised Ryan that if InnovateX wanted to fully leverage the algorithm's potential, they needed the team that understood it best. At GlassTech, chaos quickly turned into a crisis. The company's stock plummeted as soon as the news about the patent rights broke on financial news outlets. Their flagship software, Dataflow, which relied entirely on my algorithm, now faced the risk of being shut down if a legitimate licensing agreement wasn't reached. Jonathan Parker, who once stood on stage taking credit for my work, was now facing tough questions from the board of directors. An anonymous employee at GlassTech leaked to the press. This failure to protect intellectual property could cost the company millions of dollars in lost revenue every month. I received a recording of the emergency meeting from a former colleague. Jonathan's voice was filled with anxiety as he tried to explain to the board members that this was merely a small misunderstanding. But when Marjorie spoke, all confidence had drained from her tone. We skipped the patent filing process. Sarah Collins registered the intellectual property under her own name, and now InnovateX holds exclusive rights. If we don't reach an agreement, we'll have to rebuild the entire platform from scratch. The conference room fell silent for a few seconds, then murmurs filled the air. A financial director finally broke the tension, asking, "How long will this take, and how much will it cost?" Marjorie hesitated. "No less than 18 months. And the estimated cost is around $50 million, not including the revenue loss during that time." Immediately the meeting descended into chaos. The board demanded an urgent session with the legal team and corporate attorneys that very afternoon. Later that day, news of Jonathan Parker and Marjorie's termination spread across nearly every media outlet. Neither of them made any public comments, but the images of them leaving the building with cardboard boxes of their personal belongings said it all. Around 5 p.m. I received a call from an unknown number. A polished voice came through on the other end. "Hello, Miss Sarah Collins, this is Richard Donovan, the interim CEO of GlassTech. I'd like to discuss the possibility of reaching a legitimate licensing agreement for your algorithm. We're open to negotiating fair terms and publicly acknowledging your contributions." I kept my tone calm and professional. "Thank you, Mr. Donovan, but all negotiations will need to go through InnovateX's legal team. I'm confident they will reach out to you soon." Donovan paused, then sighed. "I understand. Regardless, thank you for your time. I hope we can find a solution that works for both parties." As the call ended, I looked out the window. The city lights continued to shine, and the skyscrapers stood as monuments to relentless effort and ambition. A new chapter in my life had truly begun, and I knew I would never look back. I opened my laptop and began drafting an email to Ryan and the legal team. This game was far from over, but I was ready for every move ahead. 3 months after joining InnovateX, I sat in the large conference room at our new headquarters, surrounded by familiar faces. Laura, Jason, Michael, and the entire team of former engineers from GlassTech had accepted my invitation to join InnovateX in well-deserved roles. Each of them brought passion and dedication, but above all, loyalty and belief in what we were building together. On the large screen at the front, sales charts and market value graphs displayed strong upward curves. InnovateX had surpassed GlassTech in the rankings of top technology companies. This achievement was not only due to implementing my new algorithm into products, but also because we had created a workplace where everyone felt valued and recognized. Ryan Mitchell, the CEO of InnovateX, concluded his presentation with a satisfied smile. "Thank you to Sarah and her team. This success is a result of the creativity and relentless effort of everyone here." The room erupted in applause, but I knew that this acknowledgement wasn't just empty words. Everyone in the room understood that at InnovateX their contributions truly mattered. This was a stark contrast to my years at GlassTech, where my ideas were often dismissed, or worse, taken credit for by others. As the meeting wrapped up and people began to leave, Ryan held me back. "Sarah, I have some exciting news to share. We've just received an invitation from the International Technology Conference. They want you as the keynote speaker." I was taken aback. "Me? But there are so many other people." "No, Sarah, you are the person they want to hear from. Your story about protecting intellectual property and fostering true innovation has inspired so many in the industry. You deserve this." I felt my heartbeat quicken, not with anxiety but with genuine joy. I had gone from being pushed out of my old company to a place where I was not only heard but respected. This was my chance to share my story, not to criticize anyone, but to emphasize the importance of giving proper credit to creators. That evening I sat by the window of my apartment watching the city lights shimmer. My phone buzzed with a message from Laura. The whole team just saw the announcement. "We're so proud of you. The International Technology Conference will be the perfect stage for your story." I texted back, "Thank you. We've all come such a long way, and this is because of all of you too." The next morning, I began preparing for my speech. I wanted it to be about more than just the algorithm or growth figures. I wanted to share the journey of a 50-year-old woman in the tech industry, about the challenges and the quiet victories along the way. On the day of the conference, I stepped onto the large stage, the spotlight casting a hazy glow over the audience. But as I looked down, I saw attentive faces, young professionals filled with enthusiasm, and seasoned experts with knowing eyes. My name is Sarah Collins, and today I want to share a journey with you not just about technology, but about recognition. I began, my voice clear and steady. I spoke about creating the algorithm, how it boosted data processing efficiency and the positive impact it had on InnovateX's products. But I didn't shy away from discussing the challenges I faced, the feeling of being overlooked, and how I stood up to reclaim my value. When someone doesn't see your worth, remember that it doesn't diminish your value. You can stand up, find a new path, and make a difference. I concluded my speech and the room erupted into applause. After the presentation, many attendees approached me, sharing their own stories. A young woman, about 25 years old, held my hand and said, "Your story helped me realize that I deserve recognition too. I won't let anyone take credit for my ideas again." Her words made me realize my journey had a deeper meaning. I hadn't just created an algorithm. I had helped shift the perspective on protecting intellectual property and honoring those who bring true innovation. A week later, InnovateX received an email from Richard Donovan, the interim CEO of GlassTech. He acknowledged the mistakes of the previous management and proposed a legitimate licensing agreement for my algorithm. The terms included recognizing me as the inventor and offering a fair royalty fee. Ryan invited me into the conference room to discuss it. "Sarah, what do you think? This is an opportunity to achieve both commercial gain and market stability." I nodded. "We can negotiate, but we won't compromise on principles. I want them to acknowledge my role publicly, not just on paper but in their public communications as well." "Absolutely, we'll make sure of that." Ryan smiled, his eyes filled with pride. The final outcome was everything we hoped for. GlassTech agreed to all the terms, a press release was issued, publicly acknowledging my contributions to the Dataflow product for the first time. My journey became a textbook example of protecting intellectual property rights in the tech industry. Looking back, I knew I had gained more than recognition. I had found my voice. And helped others find theirs too. It was never about revenge, it was about reclaiming what was rightfully mine. Sarah's story is not only an inspiring personal journey but also a profound lesson in today's business world. It reminds us that the true value of innovation lies in the people who create it, not just in profits or temporary fame. Recognizing and respecting intellectual contributions not only fosters a positive workplace but also leads to sustainable success for businesses. For each individual, knowing your worth is the key to unlocking new doors in life. What do you think about Sarah's story and her journey to reclaim her value? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit follow to make sure you don't miss more inspiring stories about life and family in our upcoming videos.
My name is Susan, and it's been 10 years since my family erased me from their lives as if I had never existed. No phone call, no birthday card, not even a check-in on Thanksgiving. They didn't need to say goodbye. They just made me invisible. I remember the day everything changed so clearly. I was 17, just starting my senior year of high school. My mother, Eleanor, owned a gold necklace with a pearl pendant, a family heirloom she only wore on special occasions. One Sunday morning, the necklace suddenly disappeared from her jewelry box. I hadn't gone into her room that day. I'd been in the kitchen all morning helping Uncle James, the only person in the family who had ever been kind to me, make breakfast. But that didn't matter. The moment Eleanor realized the necklace was gone, she turned to me with a chilling look of suspicion. "You were the only one home," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp enough to make my chest tighten. "And you've always had a habit of poking around things that don't belong to you." Before I could respond, Amanda, my older sister, came down the stairs, arms crossed on the railing, a smug sparkle in her eyes. "I saw Susan in Mom's room this morning," Amanda said, her face unreadable. Maybe it was an accident. An accident? I hadn't stepped foot in Mom's room all week. "I went in there to unplug the hairdryer Amanda left on," I said, trying to stay calm. "You always told me to double-check that kind of thing before leaving the house." But my mother didn't listen. She didn't need proof. She only needed an excuse to confirm what she'd always believed about me, that I was a mistake. From that day on, I was no longer invited to family dinners. They said I should feel ashamed and keep my distance. My father, Harold, didn't say a word in my defense. He only spoke once during dinner that night, just as I was leaving the kitchen. "Everything good disappears when you're around." I slept alone in the basement, ate separately, and was gradually excluded from every family activity. No one talked to me, except Uncle James, and only when no one else was nearby. I wasn't yelled at. I wasn't hit. But the silence, day after day, it was worse than anything. I thought things would change when I got into college. I was accepted to the University of Vermont. Not an Ivy League school, but enough to give me hope for a fresh start. But one day, while I was in my dorm, my roommate Sophie shoved her phone screen in front of my face. Her eyes filled with confusion. "Have you seen this?" On the screen was an anonymous blog post titled, "The Truth About Susan Walker, the Girl Who Knows How to Manipulate Everything." It was full of baseless accusations, that I faked illnesses for better grades, that I stole from friends, and of course, that I secretly took my mother's jewelry. There was no author name, but the language was disturbingly familiar. I knew instantly. It was Amanda. I tried contacting school administrators, hoping to prove the post was slander, but no one listened. "First impressions matter," one professor told me after class, "and you might want to reconsider how you present yourself." That blog post cost me my scholarship for the next semester. A scholarship I had spent 6 months earning through field research on community psychology. My classmates kept their distance. Some professors started calling my name with a cautious tone. I nearly dropped out, but I didn't. I gritted my teeth and pushed through. I worked 3 part-time jobs every week. I lived on instant noodles and powdered coffee. I studied in the library until the lights went out. I'm not sure why I kept going. Maybe a part of me still believed that if I became good enough, successful enough, my mother would call. She'd say it was all a misunderstanding, that she was wrong. But that call never came, and I stopped waiting. I graduated college at 22, with a decent GPA, no scholarships, no honors, and not a single congratulatory message from my family. I thought I had left it all behind, the past, the pain, and Amanda. But I was wrong. 3 years later, while working at a community mental health center in Providence, I got an email from a colleague. "Susan, have you seen this article? Some parts sound just like the paper you mentioned when you first joined." I opened the attachment. It was a published study in Wellness Frontiers, titled Self-Recovery Behaviors in Psychologically Traumatized Youth. Author, Amanda Walker. I read every line, and my heart sank. The structure, the citations, the data approach, even the conclusion. It was all my work. I had spent 8 months writing it in the evenings after work. Amanda couldn't have known those details, unless she had the original file. Then I remembered. A year earlier, Amanda had visited my office. She said she was thinking about switching to a career in mental health and wanted to learn from my experience. I had naively opened my laptop and shared everything, my ongoing topics, community surveys, even unpublished data charts. I thought maybe Amanda was finally trying to reconnect. I even made her coffee. And once again, I let myself be betrayed. I immediately contacted the journal, demanding they verify the source of the article. But 3 weeks passed with no reply. When I called, the receptionist said flatly, "We are not obligated to disclose our editorial process. If you believe there is a dispute, please pursue it through legal channels." I didn't have a legal team. I didn't have money to hire investigators. But I had my memory. And this time, I wasn't going to stay silent. I began gathering everything: drafts, emails sent to Amanda, even an audio clip from our meeting. It wasn't long, but enough to prove she had access to my material before the article was published. I printed out every piece of evidence, labeled each folder. But while going through everything, I found something far more serious. In an old bank account I'd opened in college, I saw a series of strange transfers labeled medical consulting, research collaboration fees, specialist support, over $18,000 total, recorded over 2 years, during a time I was barely surviving on instant noodles and paying tuition in small installments. The recipient name, Susan E. Walker. My name, but I had never received a cent of it. I sent the information to an old friend, Nathan, who now works as a forensic accountant. A few days later, he called me back, sounding tense. "Sue, you might be facing a tax investigation. These transactions are linked to an entity called the Walker Mental Wellness Foundation. But I couldn't find any valid operating license. It's likely a financial front. And worse, they used your tax ID number." I froze. "Who registered the account?" "Not sure yet, but one of the coordinators listed is Eleanor Walker." My mother's name. I wanted to deny it, to believe maybe it was a mistake. But deep down, I knew. She never stopped. My mother once told me, "There's no place in this family for someone who tarnishes our image." Now, I understand. To her, I wasn't a daughter. I was a threat to control. I reopened the old medical records file. Before my grandfather passed away when I was 15, he'd told me he had set aside part of an education fund just for me, because Susan is the only one who lives true to her heart. I never received a cent from that fund. Now I know why. I went through all my old emails, called the law office that once worked with my family. One of the former legal assistants, now retired, agreed to send me a copy of the revised will from 2014. My name had been crossed out, the reason written next to it, no verified blood relation. I started shaking. Not out of anger, out of fear. Because I knew she had faked a DNA test, and she used that result to erase me from every legal record of the family. But they forgot one thing. I'm no longer the 17-year-old girl who got silently cast out of her own home. I got the wedding invitation on an April afternoon, just as I was preparing to submit a package of evidence to Nathan's law office. Cream envelope, thick paper, gold trim, and my name, Susan E. Walker, written in a handwriting I could never forget. My mother's. Eleanor. I didn't open it right away. I stared at it sitting on my kitchen counter like a foreign object, something both distant and haunting. 10 years. 10 years of no calls, no check-ins. And now, a wedding invite? I pulled the card from the envelope, my hands going cold like the blood was draining from them. Embossed in glittering print, "You are cordially invited to the wedding of Amanda Walker and Zachary L. Morrison, June 18th at Carlton House, Newport. Zachary Morrison." It hit me immediately. 7 years ago, I had attended a social impact startup summit. I was there trying to raise seed money for my first public health initiative. One of the judges that day was Zachary. He was the young CFO of a private health investment fund. Smug, polished, textbook arrogance. When I finished my pitch, he smiled faintly and said to the entire room, "Interesting concept, but maybe learn more about finance before stepping into the real arena." I stood frozen on stage, my face burning, heart sinking. That was the last time I ever pitched as a founder. After that, I shifted to consulting behind the scenes. And now, the man who publicly humiliated me was about to marry my sister. At first, I thought it was a joke, but no, The invite was printed with real ink, a real date, a real venue. Carlton House isn't a place for pranks. It's a historic oceanfront hotel known for high society New England weddings, the kind you see in luxury documentaries about the American dream. I set the invitation back on the table and sat down, my head spinning. This wasn't random. Amanda knew I had met Zachary. So did my mother. They knew the history, the pain, and they still sent it. No note. No, we'd love to see you. No, we hope you'll forgive us. Just a cold invitation that felt more like a command. At first, I thought about tearing it in half, but then another thought crept in. Part of me wanted to understand why. Another part, the coldest part, realized they didn't want me there to reconcile. They wanted me there to witness, to be a silent bystander, a shadow in the back row, a reminder that I would always be the outsider. They forgot one thing: I'm not the same Susan anymore. That night, I called Nathan. "Are you busy on June 18th? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's going on?" "I'm going to a wedding, and I might need someone to sit next to me so I don't throw a glass of wine in someone's face." He laughed, then went quiet. "Are you sure?" "I'm not going to offer congratulations," I said. "I'm going to look them in the eye and let them see I'm still standing." After the call, I opened my closet and took out the navy blue dress I'd never worn. Fitted, deep V-neck, open back, elegant enough to avoid criticism, sharp enough to turn heads. I didn't need their approval. I needed them to see that I survived, and that I wasn't afraid of anything anymore. My body was exhausted from a long day, but my mind was spinning like a rewound film reel. The closer the wedding came, the more I realized this wasn't just an invitation. Amanda never did anything by accident. Every move she made was a chess piece she believed would win her the game. I got out of bed around 2 a.m., made a cup of ginger tea, and opened my laptop. The cold blue screen lit up the dark. I opened the Walker archive folder. A file I had created 3 years ago, then abandoned out of sheer exhaustion from fighting the past. I slowly scrolled through, opening one file at a time. Fragments of old emails, original research drafts, photos I'd saved from events Amanda attended. It was all still there, scattered like puzzle pieces that never formed a picture. This time was different. This time, I wasn't searching for fairness. I wanted the truth, and I was ready to turn over every stone to find what was buried beneath. I started with the plagiarized research paper. I found the original document I had emailed Amanda with the file attached, date and time-stamped. A week later, she replied with the subject line, "Wow, you really should publish this." I saved that exchange, then dug into Amanda's academic records. I accessed the database from our old university, where she'd supposedly completed her master's in applied psychology. To my surprise, there was no thesis under her name in the digital archives. Her name didn't appear on the list of students who'd defended their final thesis that year. I took a screenshot. My blood went cold. Next, I went to an anonymous blog I had discovered during my freshman year, a site that spread nasty rumors about female students. There was a series of posts focused on me. Back then, I suspected Amanda, but couldn't prove it. This time, I was more careful. I asked Nathan to help trace the IP address from the blog's hosting server. One of his software engineer friends tracked it to a device that had logged in from the offices of the Walker Foundation, where Amanda once served as program director. I saved the technical confirmation, another link in the chain. But what truly chilled me was what I found when I began reviewing the Walker Foundation's financial activity. With access Nathan obtained from public records, we traced several suspicious payments, listed to anonymous consultants. The recipient's name, Susan Walker. The problem was, during that time, I was working part-time at a small counseling center and had no knowledge of any of it. The total came to over $60,000 in 4 years. I sat motionless for a long time. They had used my name to hide shady transactions. They created a fake persona of me as some phantom contributor while I was scraping by month to month. I could barely breathe as I opened the next file. A leaked medical report, source unknown, but complete with the logo and stamp of Harbor Wellness Clinic, where Amanda had interned during her final year of graduate school. The report described a failed treatment that led to a 7-year-old boy being hospitalized due to a prescription error. The attending clinician listed? A. Walker. At the bottom of the internal investigation summary, the final line made my skin crawl. Insufficient evidence of professional misconduct. Case closed per executive order from Director Eleanor Walker. My mother. Again, my mother. I quietly closed the laptop and leaned back in my chair. The truth was undeniable now. Amanda hadn't just stolen my work. She had built an entire career on borrowed reputation, forged records, and the protection of my powerful mother. They thought I'd stay silent forever, that I'd never come back, never be strong enough to confront it. They were wrong. I opened the drawer and pulled out a yellow file envelope. On the front, I wrote in bold, steady pen, "For those who need to know the truth." This wasn't personal anymore. This was the truth. Even if it brought the whole house of cards crashing down. The afternoon of June 18th, Newport was glowing with sun. Carlton House stood against the deep blue sky like a perfectly staged play. White silk curtains fluttering in the breeze, violins echoing from the garden, guests in formal wear swirling like waves. They came to witness a dream wedding of the elite, and had no idea they were about to see the truth unravel. I stepped out of the car, my heels tapping softly on the marble walkway. I wore the navy blue dress with the side slit open back, modest neckline. Not flashy, but impossible to ignore. The first pair of eyes to catch me belonged to the lobby manager. She hesitated slightly, then nodded. I wasn't an uninvited guest. I had RSVP'd. They couldn't stop me. Walking through the grand entrance, everything was staged like a showcase. White orchids draped over marble columns, crystal chandeliers sparkling, chairs arranged in a crescent around an altar of silk and scented candles. Amanda stood in the distance, near the stage, in a fitted mermaid gown, her blonde curls perfectly styled. Next to her was Zachary, still polished, still cold, just like I remembered. When I entered, the room didn't exactly fall silent, but the air shifted. Fleeting glances, a few murmurs, and then... Eleanor's eyes met mine. There was a flicker in her gaze, lips pressed tight, but she said nothing. Still the same. Always performing when she knew she had an audience. The ceremony moved quickly. No one objected, no one interrupted. But I hadn't come to say I object. I came to reveal. The reception followed in the back garden. Soft jazz from the live band, champagne flutes passed around, laughter rippling through light conversation. I waited. I waited for the moment they raised their glasses to toast the bride and groom in thunderous applause. I stepped up to the podium just as the MC stepped down. No one stopped me. I took the mic, scanning the crowd. "Excuse me," I said, loud enough to be heard. "I have a few words. About family, about reputation, and about the truth." The garden froze. Amanda stood stiff. Zachary frowned, stepping back. "I'm Susan Walker, the bride's sister. Some of you may not have heard of me, and that's exactly why I'm here today." I pulled a folder from my bag and held it up. This is the original research paper Amanda submitted to receive the 2016 Public Health Fellowship. But I wrote it. I have the original file, edit notes, and the email where she asked to take a look at the draft. I didn't need to shout. I just let each word drop like a stone in the still air. This is a copy of the university academic records, showing Amanda never submitted a graduate thesis. She doesn't have a valid degree. Amanda stepped forward, her face pale, forcing a strained smile. "Sweetheart, maybe we can talk about this later." I'm not done, I said, my voice low but sharp as steel. I turned to Zachary. Do you remember 2017, the summit in Boston? I was the presenter. You laughed at me for being out of my depth. And now, you're marrying someone who built her reputation by copying and faking her way through everything. He stood frozen. Then I looked straight at Eleanor. And you? Eleanor Walker. You thought I didn't know about the 2014 DNA test? I found the fake clinic you used to erase me from the family will. But that didn't make me disappear. You forgot. Documents can be forged, but the truth can't. The glass shattered somewhere to the right. Zachary turned to Amanda, his face tightening. Is what she's saying true? His voice cracked. Amanda said nothing. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Eleanor stepped forward, about to speak, but I held up my hand. I didn't come here to argue. I came to put the truth back where it belongs. I set the mic down on the table and turned to leave. Behind me, the whispers rose like a wave. I didn't need to stay to see Zachary pull his hand away from Amanda, or Eleanor recoil like someone had thrown cold water on her. I didn't need to watch the carefully crafted image they spent their lives building start to crumble. I only needed one thing, release, and I got it. In a way none of them ever expected. Outside, the ocean breeze swept through my hair. I walked toward the sound of distant waves, shoulders back, steps steady, and never looked behind me. For the first time in years, I was free. 2 days after the wedding, life seemed to settle back into its usual rhythm. But I knew the storm was just beginning. That morning, I sat in my small apartment, sunlight pouring through the window, a half-finished cup of coffee beside me and my laptop open. I took a deep breath, then hit send. The first email went to 3 prominent health and education blogs, Health Watch Now, Scholarscope, and the Academic Mirror. Attached were copies of my original research, email exchanges with Amanda, documentation of the plagiarism, incomplete academic records, and the patient file from the prescription error at Harbor Wellness Clinic. I didn't sign my name. I didn't need to. The truth spoke for itself. The second email went to the National Office of Academic Review, the agency overseeing federal degrees and scholarships. The third, I sent to the Rhode Island State Office of Medical Licensing, responsible for issuing professional credentials for both Amanda and my mother, Eleanor. With each click of send, I felt another weight lift from my chest. I knew I was cracking the glossy finish my family had spent decades polishing. But I didn't regret it, because that shine was built on pretense, deceit, and the scars they left on me. 3 days later, the leak began. On Tuesday evening, Health Watch Now published an article titled, Plagiarism Concerns Emerge in Scholarship File of Newport Charity Executive. Though the name wasn't explicitly mentioned, a blurry photo from a spring gala 2 years ago was enough for anyone in the industry to connect the dots. The next morning, the Academic Mirror ran a more detailed report. Brookdale University alum may have earned federal grant with plagiarized work. Amanda's profile vanished from the Walker Foundation website. I checked her LinkedIn, completely wiped. No degrees, no awards, just vague filler descriptions. By Friday, the Walker Foundation homepage displayed an urgent notice. Operations temporarily suspended for internal financial review. I laughed. They called it an internal review? I called it a full-scale collapse. Nathan texted me that afternoon. The financial report you provided was enough to open a federal investigation. You're about to see things move. And sure enough, by Monday morning, my mother's name, Eleanor Walker, appeared on the preliminary investigation list by the Federal Audit Office for charitable fund mismanagement tied to fraudulent identity use. But it didn't stop there. While reviewing transactions connected to the Walker Foundation, investigators discovered an account under the name Susan E. Walker had been used to legitimize expenses for fake conferences that never actually took place. They had used my name to build the perfect cover, and now, that same name was pulling them into the light. A week later, my mother's medical license was temporarily suspended. Pending investigation, she was barred from overseeing any medical or nonprofit organization. Amanda remained silent, but according to a reporter friend of Nathan's, her academic file was now under review by the university. I didn't feel triumphant. There were no applause, no dramatic final scenes, just silence, the heavy kind that comes when a castle starts crumbling from its foundation. That night, I received a text from an unknown number. "You've gone too far. What do you think you're doing?" I didn't reply. I took a screenshot and sent it straight to Nathan. He wrote back, "The more pressure you get, the closer you are to the truth." A week later, the Newport Herald released a special investigative piece. From prestige to scandal, major state charity under fire for academic and financial misconduct. The article named not just Amanda and Eleanor, but also a third figure, Jonathan Granger, the foundation's deputy CFO and Eleanor's ex-husband, my stepfather. I wasn't surprised. Jonathan had long been the man behind the numbers, never seen in public, but the one with signature authority. And now, he was the first to be formally asked to step down from all roles pending investigation. The house they built on glitter, names, money in my silenced voice, was now collapsing layer by layer. I didn't need to stand there and watch it all fall. I just sat in my small apartment, sipped my tea, and held the paper I wrote when I was 21. My first study, the one that was stolen, now finally acknowledged. And I knew, justice doesn't always come fast, but it always arrives on time. I was watering my balcony plants when I heard a knock, not rushed, but firm. I looked through the peephole. It was my mother. Eleanor Walker stood there, shoulders squared, gray wool coat, face perfectly made up like she'd just walked out of a boardroom, even though that reputation now lay in ruins. I opened the door. She didn't speak right away, just looked at me with the same eyes that had once made me feel small 1,000 times as a child. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. Though I already knew, this wasn't a visit for reconciliation. She stepped in, her eyes scanning the apartment. Not to admire, to judge. "Still simple as ever," she commented, flatly, with no effort to hide the implication. I said nothing. I pulled out a chair for her. She didn't sit. "You've done enough, Susan," she began, voice eerily calm. "You've turned this entire family into a public joke. Do you think this is right?" I set the watering can down, wiped my hands on a dish towel, and looked her in the eye. "I didn't do anything, Mom. I just stopped staying silent." Her eyes flickered. For the first time during the visit, I saw real hesitation. "You know Amanda isn't perfect. But you didn't have to destroy everything just because you were jealous," she went on, her tone sharpening. "You always needed everything to revolve around you. And when it didn't, you attacked." I laughed, softly but uncontrollably. "No, Mom. I just wanted a life where I didn't have to pretend. I wanted to be recognized for what I did, not for how well I played the obedient role." I stood up. "But you didn't want me. You wanted a daughter who bowed her head. And when I didn't do that, you erased me from everything." "I didn't," she started, but the sentence caught in her throat. "Don't say you didn't," I said, my voice calm but firm. "You faked a DNA test to strike me from the will. You let Amanda use my name for fraudulent grants. You stood by while she stole my research and only acted when your reputation was on the line." She stayed silent. The apartment suddenly felt impossibly wide in the middle of that silence. "Do you want me to apologize?" she asked at last, breaking the stillness. I shook my head. "No, because I don't need it anymore." I opened the door. "You should go. You've got investigations to deal with. And me? I have a real life to live." Eleanor Walker stood there for a moment. Her face no longer held that flawless pride it once did. She left without another word, her heels tapping lightly against the wood floor like the soft crack of a statue beginning to split. I closed the door, didn't lock it right away. I just stood there, leaning back against the wood, exhaling deeply like letting go of a lifetime waiting for a confession, and finally realizing I didn't need one anymore. That evening, I got a call from an unknown number. "This is Marianne Hart. I used to be a nurse at Harbor Wellness. I don't know if you remember me." I froze. "Yes," I answered, heart pounding. I was on shift that day. The one where Amanda gave the wrong dosage to that little boy. I saw her change the chart afterward. I wanted to speak up, but I got reassigned the following week. I don't have hard proof, but if you need a statement, I'm willing. I was speechless. "Thank you," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "You have no idea what that means to me." "I do, because I was once someone they treated like I didn't exist too." The call ended, but I remained still, feeling my heartbeat slowly return to normal. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel the need to teach them a lesson. What needed to be said, I'd said. What needed to be revealed, I'd revealed. Now, I just wanted to let go. Not out of forgiveness, but because I no longer needed them to define who I was. The next morning, I woke up early. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting a soft golden hue across the floor. I made coffee, played some light jazz, and stepped onto my balcony, where small lavender pots were blooming, reaching upward from the care of my own hands. 1 month after Eleanor left my apartment, and the last time I ever saw her, everything grew strangely quiet. No one knocked on my door, no more threatening messages, no apology from Amanda, no letter from a family lawyer. No one tried to clarify or explain or control the damage. And oddly enough, that was exactly what I needed. There was no more anger left to hold, no more imaginary arguments in my head, no more dreams that jolted me awake at night with the weight of betrayal. I didn't need remorse. I didn't need anyone to bow and admit they were wrong, because I had moved on. One Saturday afternoon, while reorganizing my bookshelf, I found an old USB drive where I had saved every document, every piece of evidence, every truth that had once been buried. I opened it, checked each file, not because I needed anything from it anymore, but because I needed to know. I hadn't imagined it. I decided to do something I had never done before: share my story. I recorded a short video, right there in my small kitchen with natural light and no fancy edits. I didn't read from a script. I just spoke. My name is Susan Walker, and if you're hearing this, maybe you've also been through what I went through. Being ignored, pushed out, made invisible by your own family. I looked into the camera, calm in a way I never expected to be. I used to believe that if I stayed quiet enough, they'd forgive me. If I was good enough, they'd come back for me. But the truth is, some people don't want you to rise. They just want you silent so they can keep shining. I paused, took a breath. It took me years to learn this. You don't owe anyone your silence. You have the right to speak. You have the right to walk away. You have the right to build a new life, even if you never get an apology. I smiled. A real smile, not forced. They may never own up to their wrongs, they may never return, but that doesn't define who you are. Only you get to decide that. I ended the video with a simple line: live bigger than the limits they tried to put on you. I uploaded it to a small online forum where people shared stories about broken families. I didn't expect much, but within a week, there were hundreds of shares and thousands of comments. I'm the older sister in a family where my brother was always the center. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. I thought I was the only one who's ever been called a burden by my own mother. You gave me the courage to stop seeking acceptance from a place it never existed. Each comment was a reminder I wasn't alone, and I never had been the problem. I was just the one brave enough to step off the stage everyone else was scared to leave. I still live my simple life. My little apartment, my work at the community counseling center, and quiet weekends teaching restorative yoga for trauma survivors. I don't need a spotlight. I have the truth. One day, after yoga class, an older woman came up to me. She gently took my hand, eyes glassy but smiling. "My daughter sent me your video. I hadn't spoken to her in almost 8 years, but after watching it, I called her. "Thank you." I placed my hand over hers and said, "It's never too late to listen." I don't know if Eleanor ever watched the video, or if Amanda ever read any of the articles written about her, but it doesn't matter anymore. Because the life I'm living now is no longer tied to their gaze. It isn't ruled by someone else's approval. I was once forgotten, pushed aside, twisted into someone I wasn't. But now I'm free, and no one can take that away from me. So if you're hearing me and you've been hurt, I want you to remember this. You don't need forgiveness to find peace. You just need to give yourself permission to begin again. And this time, start with the truth. From my own story, I've learned that sometimes the bravest thing isn't forgiving or forgetting. It's stepping out of the silence and reclaiming your voice. I used to live for others, used to be hurt by things I never did. But now I live for myself, no longer seeking acceptance, no longer needing apologies. Freedom doesn't come from waiting for others to change. It comes the moment you let them go to hold on to yourself. What do you think about Susan's journey? Have you ever experienced something similar? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more emotional and honest stories about family, healing, and finding your voice. My name is Rebecca, and this isn't an easy story to tell. The summer I turned 15, my parents left me at an old train station off the highway as a lesson in growing up. They didn't lose me. They didn't forget. They did it on purpose, then drove off, leaving me standing there with 2 bottles of water and a lump of doubt stuck in my throat. The silver SUV slid out of the parking lot like I had never existed. At first, I naively thought they were just circling around to park in the shade. But 5 minutes passed, then 10. I checked my phone. A message from Mom popped up on the screen. "Let's see how long it takes you to find your way home. Just a little test, Rebecca. Kids need things like this to grow up." It felt like a boulder crushed my chest. It wasn't the first time they'd done something cruel like this. 3 years ago, when I was 12, they locked the door and left me standing in the backyard during a thunderstorm because I forgot my muddy shoes by the front steps. When I was 13, Mom made me walk over 5 miles home in pouring rain, no coat, just because I missed the school bus. Back then, they called it building character. This time, I was alone at Shady Creek Station, a desolate place with a few rusted benches and a faded vending machine scorched by the sun. I gripped my phone and called Dad. No answer. I called Mom. Nothing. I tried again, still that cold, lifeless voicemail. "Can't take your call right now." My hands trembled, but inside me was a dangerous stillness, like the surface of a lake right before the storm hits. There weren't many people around. An elderly couple waiting for a late train, a man who looked like a long-haul trucker smoking in the far corner. No one noticed me. A teenage girl, face pale with shock, clutching a lukewarm bottle of water, standing still in the sweltering July heat. I checked my wallet. Just $86 left, money I saved from a few weeks working at the local bakery. Then I remembered someone, the only person who ever said I could call if I needed help, my aunt, Lauren, Mom's sister, who hadn't been in contact with the family for years because she was too soft, according to my dad. I tapped on Aunt Lauren in my contacts. My heart raced as it rang. She picked up on the second ring. "Rebecca?" Her voice sounded a little unsure, then immediately worried. "Where are you? What's going on?" I took a deep breath. I'm at Shady Creek Station. They left me here." My voice didn't sound like mine. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. She paused. I heard a car engine start on the other end. "Stay right there. I'm coming. No one gets to leave you like that." Tears spilled from my eyes uncontrollably. Not from fear, not from loneliness, but because, for the first time in my life, someone told me I didn't deserve to be treated this way. I sat on the rusted bench, back pressed against the cold concrete pillar in the shade. I didn't know it then, but my life was about to change paths. A path I would carve for myself, step by step, no longer bowing or asking permission. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going back. It's been 20 years since that summer afternoon, but I still remember every detail. The sticky sweat on my old shirt, the sound of a soda can rolling underfoot, and the look in Aunt Lauren's eyes when her car pulled up at Shady Creek. She hugged me tight without asking a single question, just said, "Let's get you home." And for the first time, I understood that home doesn't have to be the place you're born. I rebuilt my life from scratch, an old suitcase, a state ID, and a heart full of cracks. Aunt Lauren let me stay in her small apartment in the suburbs of Santa Fe, where she lived alone after her divorce. I went back to school, worked as a waitress, took night classes. Those years weren't easy, but they gave me the strength to stand tall. 10 years later, I launched my own interior design firm, Blue Mesa Studio. Now, I'm the CEO of a business based in Denver, with 3 branches across the Southwest, and a team I consider family. This morning, I was preparing for a big presentation with a luxury hotel in Santa Barbara when my phone rang. A strange number appeared on the screen. I was about to decline it, but something told me I should answer. I pressed accept and brought the phone to my ear. "Rebecca?" That voice froze my blood. "It's me, Monica." I gripped the phone tighter, my heart pounding like it would break free from my chest. Monica, my sister, daughter of the same parents, the one who stood by them, who stayed silent when I was left at that station. How did you get my number?" "Aunt Lauren gave it to me. Please don't be mad at her. She just wanted to help." I didn't say anything. Monica took a deep breath, then went on, her voice trembling. "Rebecca, Mom and Dad are in trouble. Dad lost his job last year. Mom is drowning in debt. The house is being foreclosed. They need help. They need you." I felt something cold shatter inside me. They need me? After all these years of silence, pretending I didn't exist? After everything? "Rebecca, I'm not calling to justify," Monica said softly. "I know what they did was wrong. So wrong. But they're really desperate now. Please, at least hear them out." I bit my lip, trying to keep my voice steady. "What do they want? Money?" "Not just money," Monica replied. "They need your help renegotiating with the bank, the creditors. You have a name now. You have influence." I stepped out onto the balcony, the morning breeze brushing through my hair. The misty hills of Denver stretched out below, peaceful to the point of irony. I had spent years building this life, a life free of control, free of hurt. "Rebecca, please," Monica repeated, almost begging. "They have no one else." I closed my eyes, and for a moment, I saw myself at 15, standing alone at that station with Mom's cold message on my screen. I still kept that old phone as a reminder that I had once been seen as nothing but a burden. I opened my eyes. "Fine, send me the address. But just one meeting. I'm not staying." Monica exhaled in relief. "Thank you, Rebecca, I promise. And don't call me Rebecca like you didn't walk away from me," I cut in. "See you Saturday, 9 a.m., the cafe by Union Station." I ended the call before she could say another word. That evening, I sat alone on the porch bench, a steaming mug of herbal tea in my hand. I scrolled through old photos, my first design drafts for Blue Mesa, snapshots with my team at our office launch. Everything I had, I built from nothing. And now they were back, not to ask how I was, but to pull me back into the mess they made. But I wasn't that 15-year-old girl anymore. This time, I would be the one setting the terms, and they would have to face the truth. Not just the truth about the debt, but the truth about who they were and who I had become. I arrived at the cafe by Union Station at 8:45 a.m., 15 minutes early. The Denver sky wore a muted gray, as if the weather, too, sensed the heaviness ahead. I chose a corner table, my back to the street, so I could observe without being easily seen. Monica arrived on time, her face still sharp and familiar, but with dark circles under her eyes that no makeup could hide. She offered a faint smile when she saw me. I just nodded. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. I crossed my arms and leaned back in my chair. "Let's get to the point. I don't have much time." Monica swallowed hard. "Mom's on antidepressants. Dad, well, you know he's never been good with money. They're losing everything. The house is under foreclosure, the credit card debt is massive, and they believe that if you speak on their behalf, the creditors might reconsider." I gave a dry smirk. "Because I have a name. Because the one they abandoned is now worth something." Monica lowered her head, silent. I went on, my voice no longer soft. "Do you have any idea how I've lived these past years? I once slept in a moldy room with a leaking ceiling, went to school while juggling 3 part-time jobs, all because the people you call mom and dad thought it was real-world education. And now they want something from me? No, they lost that right a long time ago." Monica looked like she was about to say something, but I held up my hand. "If they try to contact me again, I'll have my lawyer handle it. This is the only meeting I'm agreeing to." I left money for the coffee on the table and walked out. I thought that would be the end of it. But I had underestimated how persistent they could be. 3 days later, head of Blue Mesa's communications team knocked on my office door with a tense expression. "Rebecca, I think you need to see this," she said, placing an iPad on my desk. On the screen was a Facebook post, bold headline blaring, "Successful daughter abandons elderly parents without a second thought." I felt my whole body freeze. The post included an old, candid photo of me taken at a press conference, along with a long-winded story from a heartbroken mother betrayed by her own child. My name wasn't mentioned directly, but everyone knew it was me. Below the post were thousands of furious comments. "I can't believe someone could be so heartless. Raised her, and this is what they get. So sad. Got rich and forgot where she came from." I sat there, silent. Ava looked at me, worried. "We're trying to manage comments on the company page, but some clients have already canceled contracts. A few partners are asking for clarification." I didn't respond right away. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from anger. They didn't just want help, they wanted control. And when that didn't work, they turned into victims. That night, I received an email from an old contact in the media world. "Rebecca, are you okay? The story about you is spreading fast. Maybe it's time to speak up." I stared at my computer screen for a long time. I knew I couldn't stay silent. Not this time. Not when my reputation, my company, and the truth itself were being twisted so blatantly. I opened a blank document and began to write. The words poured out like a dam breaking. Not with rage, not with bitterness, just the truth. I wrote about the past, Shady Creek Station, the storms I was locked out in, the days I survived thanks to one kind aunt. I wasn't writing to justify. I was writing to remind people that silence isn't always the right choice. When I hit post, I knew I was stepping into a new kind of fight, but this time, I wasn't afraid. Because I wasn't that abandoned girl at the old train station anymore. My post on social media was under 1,000 words. No embellishments, no whining, just the truth. Raw, cold, undeniable. I recounted the summer afternoon I was left at Shady Creek Station with a nearly dead phone and the message from Mom. "Let's see how you manage." I told of being locked out during storms, the 10-mile walk in the rain because I missed the bus. I didn't use their real names, but everyone knew who I was talking about. I wasn't asking for sympathy. I just refused to stay quiet while the people who made me claw my way out of the dark pretended to be victims under the spotlight. Within 2 hours of posting, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Messages, calls, emails from old friends, colleagues, even strangers. Most were words of support, people sharing their own stories, kids once seen as burdens, who had to save themselves while others admired their families from the outside. The media picked up on it. Some journalists requested interviews, while a few major accounts reshared my post with captions like, "Not everyone gets to choose their childhood, but everyone deserves to tell the truth." Days later, public opinion had shifted. The same people who criticized me were now turning on my parents, calling them anything from neglectful to things I won't repeat. They deleted the original post, shut down their accounts, vanished from social media. But I knew it wasn't over. A week later, during a meeting with Blue Mesa's legal team, my assistant Ella walked in with a thick envelope, delivered via express mail. "From Mitchell and Crane Law Offices," she said, her voice low. I opened the letter, scanned it, and slowly folded it back up. A strange mix of amusement and bitterness settled in my chest. "They're suing me," I said simply, placing the envelope on the table. "Under Arizona's filial responsibility law, they want me to financially support them for the rest of their lives." The room was quiet. One of my attorneys, Thomas, raised an eyebrow. "That statute doesn't apply in Colorado, but if they filed in their home state, it could be a complicated case." I nodded. "We're not backing down. We face it." That afternoon, I called Aunt Lauren. She went silent when I told her. "You don't owe them anything, Rebecca," she said. "They chose to walk away. Now they have to live with that choice." I sat in my office, looking out at the Denver skyline coming to life. Every light told a story, a life, and mine had once been a faint flicker in the dark, lit by nothing but my own hands. No one had reached down to pull me up. No one but me. This lawsuit wasn't just a money grab. It was retaliation. Their way of saying I'd never escape, that the past would always find a way back. But I was ready. I was no longer the girl trembling at Shady Creek, unsure which way to go. I was the woman who'd built everything with her own hands, and I wasn't going to let them tear it down. I hired the best legal team I could find, not just to protect myself, but to put a clear, permanent end to a toxic chain that had lasted more than 2 decades. 2 days later, I received a text from an unlisted number. I didn't need to open it to know who sent it. "Rebecca, don't take this too far. They're still your parents. Remember everything we've done for you." I didn't respond. I just took a screenshot, forwarded it to my lawyer, and added a note. "Proof they're still trying emotional manipulation. Proceed." That night, I went back to my apartment and stood on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker. Inside, my laptop was still open, legal documents spread across the table. I picked up the phone and called Ava. "Tomorrow, we release a press statement. Make it clear. No sugarcoating. People deserve to know the truth. And I'm not ashamed of it." Ava paused for a second, then replied firmly, "I'll handle it. You're not alone." I smiled softly. That's right. This time I wasn't fighting alone. And I would see it through to the end. 1 week after I officially responded to the lawsuit and brought my story into the light, I thought the storm had begun to settle. I was wrong. The most dangerous people are the ones with nothing to lose, especially when they share your last name. That night, just as I finished washing dishes and was about to review plans for the new hotel project in Sedona, Ava called. Her voice was urgent, missing its usual composure. "Rebecca, you need to join the comms channel. Something big just happened." I opened my laptop and logged into the internal system. Right on the homepage were a flood of emergency emails, red subject lines, flashing warning icons. Alert, financial fraud allegations involving Blue Mesa CEO. Leak report, Rebecca Fisher suspected of embezzling investment funds. It felt like someone had kicked me hard in the stomach, not out of fear, but pure rage. I clicked on the attachment, a series of forged emails sent from strange addresses, accusing me of using company funds to buy a private home, make personal purchases, and transfer money to relatives. The accusations were carefully crafted, complete with spreadsheets, doctored bank statements, and even an anonymous confession from a so-called former insider. Not long after, messages from investors started pouring in. Some requested clear explanations. A few, while polite, showed visible concern. The rest, silence. The most dangerous kind in business. I sat frozen in front of the screen. Ava was on the other side, eyes locked on mine. "We're tracking the origin of the email accounts, but it looks like a coordinated attack." 3 hours later, our cybersecurity team uncovered the first piece of the puzzle. All the fake emails and accounts traced back to the same IP address, located in Tucson, Arizona. More specifically, a house on Crystal Creek Road. A house I knew down to every brick and white picket fence. It was my parents' old home. My hands went cold as the tech team sent over the access logs. The computer name? Celeste PC. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry at the audacity. I logged into my personal account and wrote a new post. I used to think the worst thing they ever did was leave me at an old train station when I was 15. But I was wrong. This past week, I've been accused of embezzlement, investor fraud, and using company funds for personal gain. All the evidence is fake. Thanks to our IT team, I now know exactly who was behind it. My own parents. This is no longer a family matter. This is a calculated campaign to destroy the reputation and career I've spent 20 years building. But I'm not afraid. I survived being disregarded and abandoned. I will survive this too. The truth may not always be easy to hear, but it is always more powerful than any lie. I hit post. Within an hour, the post had over 200,000 views. In 3 hours, it had spread across major forums, from women entrepreneur groups to respected news platforms. People weren't just condemning my parents' actions, they were starting to question the toxicity of certain family dynamics. At the same time, I received an internal call from Blue Mesa's legal representation. "Rebecca, we have enough grounds to file a countersuit for defamation and business interference. Do you want to move forward?" I looked out the window, the city lights twinkling beyond the glass. I thought of the sleepless nights, of my first office paid with savings, of the first client who believed in my vision when all I had was a sketch and a promise. I turned back, my voice firm. "Yes, let's begin." The next morning, I got one final message from an unknown number. "If you do this, what will be left of us?" I typed back, steady and clear. "Nothing. And that's the choice you made." I hit send. And this time, I knew. I had cut the final tie binding me to the past. I wasn't afraid anymore. I had become someone they never expected. And I wouldn't let anyone, not even the ones who gave me life, destroy that. 2 months after the countersuit and the release of undeniable evidence, everything went quiet. No more anonymous emails, no more slanderous posts spreading online, no one messaging me to remember the blood bond. Finally, silence returned. Not the silence of fear, but the peace after a storm. One Wednesday morning, as I was reviewing a restaurant layout for a hotel in San Diego, Ella stepped into my office, holding a file. "Rebecca, you should see this." I opened it. Bank documents, asset liquidation notices, photos of my parents' old home on a real estate listing. The sign in front of the gate read, "Urgent sale, bankruptcy liquidation." The house where they had once thrown parties, refused to let me step foot in after I left. It now stood empty in a quiet neighborhood. Dry grass in the yard and shuttered windows staring blankly. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel satisfaction. What I felt was a slow, deep relief. Like finally taking off a pair of shoes that had been hurting you for years but you'd kept wearing anyway. They had lost everything. Not because of me, but because of the choices they once believed were right. The silence back then, the coldness, and the resentment they turned toward the growth of the child they chose to discard. That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. I wasn't planning to answer, but my hand lifted on its own. A hoarse, tired voice spoke on the other end. "Rebecca, it's me, Monica." I closed my eyes for a moment, then opened them. "What do you want? Can you just listen for a minute?" I didn't respond. Monica continued. her voice breaking with each word. I know it's too late. You were right. They ruined everything themselves. Mom's crashing with an old friend now, and Dad, he doesn't talk to anyone anymore. Whenever someone brings up your name, they just look down. No one believes them anymore. I stayed silent. I'm not calling to ask for anything, Monica added. I want to say, I'm sorry. For standing by when you needed me. For staying quiet when I should have spoken up. My voice was calm. An apology doesn't change the past. I know, Monica whispered. You have every right not to forgive. I just didn't want you to think, no one regrets what happened. I exhaled. No anger, no emotion. You didn't lose me, Monica, I said evenly. Mom and Dad did. And they don't get another chance. I hung up before she could say more. That evening, I texted Aunt Lauren. Are you free this weekend? I'd love to take you to dinner. You pick the place. She replied almost instantly. Of course. There's a new Italian spot in Boulder. I hear the fresh pasta is amazing. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in days. Aunt Lauren. The one who opened her arms when the world turned its back. No demands, no strings, just presence, warmth. The very thing I had yearned for my entire childhood. Before bed, I scrolled through my contacts, down to the 2 names that still sat there like unhealed scars, Celeste Holloway and Donald Holloway. I didn't hesitate anymore. I blocked both. Then I closed the app. No anger, no regret. It was just time. I used to think I needed a confrontation, an apology, or acknowledgement. But the truth is, I didn't need any of that. I just needed freedom. Freedom from expectations, from the weight of trying to prove my worth to people who never saw it. I stepped out onto the balcony, a mug of hot tea in hand, the night breeze drifting through my hair. The Denver skyline sparkled below, as calm as my heart in that moment. I had once been the girl left on the side of the road, with a few dollars and a shredded sense of dignity. Now, I was the woman who rewrote her own story. Not for revenge, but because I deserved a different ending. One of freedom. Family isn't always the people who share your blood. It's the ones who stay when everyone else walks away. The ones who listen, believe, and never make you prove you're worthy of love. Instead, I don't carry resentment anymore, but I don't forget either. And that's how I choose to let go. From my own story, I've learned something important. Blood doesn't always mean love. No one has the right to make you feel less just because of the family you were born into. Choosing to walk away from toxic relationships isn't selfish, it's brave. I don't need revenge or late apologies. I just need peace. And if you're struggling with pain caused by the people closest to you, remember this. You have every right to choose where you belong. What do you think about Rebecca's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more real, heartfelt stories about life, family, and the power of choice.